Oh shit.
Hello and welcome to the
Actually-
Deep Lore Podcast. I'm here with my boy Andrew today. And you have no idea what we're going to talk about. You might. We've been talking about it.
I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
This is a weekly podcast where we just find a topic that interests one of us at the time being, or something that used to interest us in the past, and we just kind of go over it briefly and then just have a casual talking podcast. You know, this isn't a podcast that's going to be in depth or, you know, super informative. It's just kind of like interesting things that you guys might want to look up afterwards and read more about. So this week, Andrew, I'm going to be talking about number stations. And I know you've briefly heard me talking about that before, because I was going to try to get Jared on the podcast, but I didn't get my mic set down yet, and I don't want to run out of backlog videos. So I decided to just go for it. And you know what about number stations? What's that?
I don't know anything about number stations. I have no idea.
You seem like you'd be someone who would have heard of number stations, because you like.
I mean, I've heard that term before, but I've never.
You don't know anything about it.
I don't know anything about it.
So basically, a number station is a shortwave radio station that it broadcasts strings of numbers, but not just like as simple as you would think, where it's just like spouting off numbers all the time. So the main theory, no one actually knows what these are at all. Like they've been around for a little after World War I, I think. So we're talking like, when was that? Like 50 to 70 years ago, maybe more. And they're just these radio stations that broadcast on shortwave radio. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on the shortwave radio, the radio band or whatever it's called, and shortwave. I don't know if it's all shortwave, but these number stations broadcast out at a high signal, and it can be heard basically from anywhere. You know, unless it's raining or there's bad weather, usually you can broadcast with high enough power or whatever out of the United States and hear the number station in China or wherever. And so the prevailing theory of why these exist, and they've existed forever, and there's still quite a few active today, is they think.
Wait, so there's only theories as to why they exist?
No one's really acknowledged that they even exist, like governments or anything. But the fact that they keep running, they're like, the government has to know what they are, so therefore they think it's the government's like number stations, right? Because otherwise you'd think there'd be an investigation or something.
So this is like a conspiracy theory?
It's not really a conspiracy theory. It's kind of like just a mystery. There's not really a conspiracy, except the fact that no one knows what it's for. But the main prevailing theory is that they're broadcasting out these numbers to spies in other countries. So the U.S. would be broadcasting numbers, and different number stations broadcast at different times. Some broadcast like every morning and every night at a certain time. Some broadcast once a week. There's some that have only broadcasted 3 times ever. They just have like a random loop going for like 30 years. And then, you know, after 10 years, they play a line of numbers and then it goes back to the loop. So people think it's really mysterious. The other theory is someone thought that potentially it was drug smugglers using them to send codes. But honestly, I think that it is just like governments sending codes to spies in other parts of the world. And like, the thing about number stations, I don't know exactly the methods that they use to decode, but they have like a daily kind of encoder or whatever you want to call it, where they get the numbers and they can know what it's saying, but no one else can decipher what the radio stations are saying, because no one's ever been able to decode them either. Just by nature of however exactly they're operating and how they're doing the encoding or whatever. So
I understand this as much as I understand Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's
like
basically
0.
You know, I mean, you like crime stuff and mystery, so I feel like you know a little bit about, you know, someone sending out numbers, they'd have to have some kind of. I mean, you've heard of the Enigma code, right, or whatever, or not? Maybe we'll have to do that. There's some way that they have like some kind of pamphlet that tells them what each number means, but however they do it, and I should have looked more into the specifics of how it's done, but it can't be decoded. So no one's ever been able to figure out what these number stations are, sending out. Like, it's just a mystery. So
that's interesting.
Some have schedules, like I said, and some seem to be random, where like it'll just go off one day out of nowhere, and then it'll stop for a while. Like I told you with the one that it's only broadcast 3 times in like 30 years or something. They were first known to be used in World War I, which we went over, and some are still active today. Here's an interesting thing. North Korea just revived number stations in 2016. So they haven't had a number station since whenever, World War I, or if ever, I don't know when they had them. But just a year ago, they just started up a couple number stations. And some analysts were saying that they think that this is a psychological war where they think that they have spies out everywhere, but they're just broadcasting random numbers. Or they could have spies, and they are using it legitimately. But it's just kind of funny that because they're kind of fading out over time, finally. But
because I guess there's different ways for them.
Yeah,
to,
there's probably easier
down.
ways, but for some reason, there's still some that are in use today. And I think part of that might be because it's you can't decode it unless potentially you find the way to decode it, which you'd need to like find a spy or whatever. And then you'd need to know what number station they were using and what times it broadcasts, whatever. But yeah, North Korea started up some number stations recently, which is kind of interesting.
North Korea's doing a whole lot of weird stuff lately.
Yeah. So that's why people were thinking they're starting that up to make it seem like they think that, they have everything going and they know what they're doing, but probably just...
I read somewhere that the mountain above Pyongyang that they were like testing all of the like bombs and stuff on
right.
is like crumbling or something like that.
The mountain's crumbling?
Yeah, I don't know. I
like a rock slide?
Article.
Or like underneath?
Yeah, well, no, it was like the mountain is like coming apart somehow. I would... Obviously, I didn't like really read.
No, I see how that would be weird. Like they're doing something under the mountain or something, and it's like crumbling down. And
well, they were like doing nuke tests, I guess, on the mountain or like in the mountain, and now it's like structurally part of the mountain is like starting to decay somehow.
Yeah, I mean that'll happen if you're testing bombs under a mountain or on the mountain.
Right. Yeah, and not feeding your people.
Make sure you keep your people fed or your mountains are going to start crumbling.
Oh man, these mountains are going to come crumbling down.
So they're usually just voiced by like a human or synthetic human voice, like a robot. You know what I mean? Like a computer generated voice. Like text to speech, stuff like that.
They're voiced?
Yes. So the numbers... Yeah, because someone's saying, like 8, 7, 8, 6, 5, or whatever. And so it's usually voiced by like a human or like a synthetic text-to-speech kind of voice. And some of them have music as well. What's that?
Robots.
A robot. And some of them play music. So there is a website... or a place where you can find, it's called the Connet Project. I hope I didn't spell that wrong. It's a 4 CD set of recordings on number stations in the last, like, however long, 20 years. And
so what, just like a bunch of recordings of people saying like
reading
1,
off numbers.
8, 9.
Right.
That sounds so horrible.
And some
just
of these can be
to
found
that over and over.
Some of these can be found on the Internet Archives. Now, you're right. If you just take it at base value and it's just someone reading numbers off, it's kind of boring. But when you think about the people who, I mean, when I first heard about this, this was in like 2007 or 8 or 9. YouTube was just becoming a thing. And before YouTube, like, you weren't even able to hear these number stations. The only people who knew of them were people who had shortwave. And they probably like told their friends and they're like, dude, I'm listening to this station and it's playing music. And then all of a sudden someone just reads off numbers in a monotone voice. And then it goes back to music. You know what I mean? Like, it's bizarre.
Oh, so it plays music?
Some of them play music, or it's static or whatever. But can you imagine listening to, like, shortwave radio and you're just listening to static or beeps or something, and all of a sudden someone comes on, reads off a bunch of numbers, and then stops? Like, it was really bizarre. It was a weird mystery. And then so I found out about it when YouTube was early on, and people were posting clips of some of the number stations recordings and stuff. And I remember just thinking, this is so weird and so interesting. And I've got quite a few to show you, Andrew, and I'll play most of them. I should be able to play on the podcast. So I'll play at least pieces, so the viewers can hear it. And a lot of the recordings from that 4 CD set can be found on the Internet Archive. So there's tons of information of stuff where you can go back and listen to these recordings. So I'm going to send you one, Andrew. This is just a standard. I think this is the most famous. I should have sent you that in the projects folder. And in there too, so I don't forget later.
Alright, I'm listening to it now.
Okay, I'm going to play it as well.
3, 9,
That's
7,
horrible music.
1,
Well, it's being broadcast over shortwave radio, so it's not like always the best signal.
1, 5. 3, 9, 7, 1, 5. 3, 9, 7, 1, 5.
Now, you don't have to listen to the whole thing, Andrew, but if you heard that on the radio, I'm sure you'd be a little bit concerned. You know what I mean? Like, you see, like, this is like
It's pretty bizarre, yeah.
What
What if it was like calls to alien spacecrafts?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, back before the internet, I mean, just think about the people who had shortwave and they found this. Like, you know, if you're a shortwave enthusiast, you probably don't have that many friends who are also shortwave enthusiasts. You probably have a few. But,
or you only have friends that are shortwave
or you do,
enthusiasts.
but even then, like, think about a typical. I mean, in cities there might be, but think about like a regular, normal-sized town of like 100,000 or something, right? There's probably like 50 shortwave enthusiasts at max in that town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you have like.
That's a lot of shortwave enthusiasts.
And that's I'm giving it like quite a. I think that's kind of a high number, potentially. But you'd only be able to get together with these few people. I mean, if someone told me
they're
this,
gonna need like 3 Radio Shacks for those 50,
right.
50 people.
And that's the thing. If someone told me about this in like the 90s, and there was no internet yet, and they're just like, yeah, there's this crazy station that plays music, and then it just reads off a bunch of numbers, and then it goes quiet for like 6 hours. You know, like, I don't even know if I would believe them. It's just kind of weird, you know. And I can only imagine what they were thinking.
Sticking with the alien thing.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, people might think like aliens, or they're trying to contact aliens, or, you know, spies, drug smuggling, all the theories. And luckily we have the internet now, but people are still skeptical about it because no government has like come forward and said, yes, we're using these. You know, these are ours. You know, they're just kind of like, they just exist, and people are just like, I don't get it. You know.
Huh.
And so here's
That's
another
so
one.
weird.
Another pretty standard one. Bert,
I don't see it.
I sent it in the projects folder, Andrew.
Oh.
You want to skip ahead to 25 seconds or so?
Okay.
You can skip to like 45 seconds.
That music is horrifying. Honestly, this can all be cut up and like turned into like some fucking crazy like horror trap song.
Some people have sampled this music or number stations, and I think that's awesome. Bet. But you can see, Andrew, when I
sounds like.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it sounds like that somebody would do that, like cut it up and.
It does sound like perfect sampling material. Yeah. When I first heard of number stations, when I first watched, and these two videos I saw way back in like whenever, maybe 2010. I don't know if these were these exact videos, but I heard these recordings. And at the time, I actually thought it was kind of creepy. You know what I mean? This was before people had discussed it fully on the internet. And now that I know it's probably spy stuff, I just find it bizarre and also fascinating. Because if you don't know what it is, it's kind of creepy. You know, with that music that seems like it's out of like... It's like sounds like a lullaby or something. It's like
one of those like wind up box things.
And then all of a sudden from, like, you just hear someone reading numbers. And that's the thing. That one is in Swedish, I think. And so you could get these from the United States. So first you're listening to this weird music, and then you're listening to like most people probably wouldn't even know that they're reading off numbers in another language. So yeah, it's really weird. And so there's a couple other stations. These have a little bit more backstory. This is UVB76. I don't believe it's going anymore. This is a sound clip. It's not a video.
So none of these shortwave places... Never mind, hold on.
You like that one?
Yeah, that was just nonsense.
Did you hear that?
It was just beats.
Yes. So, the interesting thing about this, you were going to say none of these exist anymore? Is that what you were about to say?
No, I was going to say, like, none of these stations had, like, a physical address.
So, this is a good question. Some people have used gear or equipment to triangulate the signal and hunt them down to find them. Now, I should have done some research on that, Andrew, but I do remember a story in the past where they did track down, and I don't know if this is verifiable or true, but someone was talking about triangulating it and tracking one down, and they came to like, it was just like a building, like a radio station looking thing with like an antenna or whatever at the top. Maybe 2 or 3 stories high, kind of smallish building in the country somewhere. This isn't like a creepy horror movie. Oh, I drove 100 miles into the country and there was this. It was just, kind of like out in the field somewhere. It probably had a real address or anything. It's not so crazy. And, they just found this building where they think it was coming from. Obviously, they didn't go in or anything, but I think they can just operate in small buildings like that because if they're sending out these signals, if it really is for spies, and you might say, okay, well, maybe it's at like a government facility or something, which maybe some of them are, but if you raid that building and you look at the codes or whatever, you probably aren't going to learn anything because you don't know how to encode the code anyway. So it's probably, safe. You know what I mean? It's not like... Right. It's not like some crazy Stranger Things government facility in the middle of the woods,
But you could still like find the person that was, transmitting the signal and like question them and see.
Yeah, you could, and it's and that's one of the fascinating things, Andrew, is that because no one knows very much about number stations, it's very possible that maybe some of the number stations have been, invaded. I don't know what the right word would be, but I mean that's the thing is like if the U.S. has spies in other countries, the number station is probably going to be in the United States. So if you're going to risk having a spy in the United States and then go to a number station, I don't know. and again, the one that I was talking about, there's no proof necessarily that that was the number station or that the signal was correct. But no, they're just kind of weird anomalies. So the sound that I sent you from UVB76, the number station, was just buzzing, but that buzzing was playing for 20 years over the air, just constantly, that buzzing sound on that channel for 20 years. It was interrupted 3 times ever. And it was interrupted 3 times, and it listed Russian names and numbers. So that one was potentially a Russian number station. And the other thing people said about the... And by the way, I did want to cover when you said, they could ask the guy who's working at the number station, interrogate him or whatever. Some of them aren't even live. Like, they're just tapes recorded previously. Now, this one, people thought was very weird because that buzzing sound is they think that it wasn't a recording. They think that was a live buzzing sound playing through some kind of speaker or something next to the microphone. Because
for 30 years?
For over 20 years. Because they'd heard distant conversations sometimes in the background.
That's so bizarre.
I mean, I don't know why you would want that to be going live. And that's the thing, 20 years and it only broadcasted 3 times. Now, it's possible it was broadcasted maybe 5 or 7 times and people could have potentially missed it. But shortwave radio enthusiasts have been fascinated by number stations for years. So I would feel like there would be at least someone listening to it at all times. But it's possible it broadcasted a couple more times. But yeah, 20 years of that, potentially live, at some kind of location where there's people there, because they said they heard distant talking.
Right.
It's just crazy,
crazy.
that it did that.
Jinx.
And there's one more here. I thought I had some backstory for this one. I may have lost it. You hearing this one? You can skip ahead a little bit in that one, but it's kind of horrifying sounding.
Yeah, that sounds like horror music.
Yeah, so that one, I don't know if that is specifically a number station, but yeah, it's just this weird, creepy, scratchy sound with some bangs in the background, and no one really knows what it is, but some people were thinking, I believe it was this one, that is actually like encoded sound where you could pull some kind of potentially number stations, numbers or code out of it and get information from it. But
bizarre. That
one doesn't necessarily read numbers, but I would still consider it kind of related to number stations in a way.
Yeah.
That's
really cool.
There's a brief video. I'm not going to make you watch it because it's like 15 minutes, which is one of the first videos I saw on number stations when I was looking at them on YouTube. But it's a segment from NPR called Lost and Found Sound. They had a segment, and that one was called The Shortwave Numbers Mystery, where there's a guy talking about how he was a shortwave enthusiast and how he's been listening to number stations for years and stuff. And I'm going to link that in the description for you guys to watch. And I'll probably send it to you, Andrew, if you're interested.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's really all there can be said about number stations. It's really kind of shrouded in mystery. I mean, most people just straight up believe, yes, it's for spies and they're sending messages out and there's not anything sinister going on. But because there's not a lot of proof, and some people have said, things about it, like some ex-CIA agents or whatever have said, yeah, it's probably for spies or whatever, but there's no concrete proof or even acknowledgement of their existence. So it's just kind of a weird little mystery,
Yeah, like I've never heard of this before. It really kind of reminds me, like this, especially this last one,
Mhm.
like the music. I don't know. It just, like, it reminded me of this one video I watched of this guy Mudahar on YouTube.
Okay.
Some Ordinary Gamers. Look him up. He's awesome,
Okay.
hilarious. He does like these deep what do you call it? Deep web exploration videos.
That would be perfect for
Where-
us to get some content from. I've always been fascinated by the deep web.
He'll go through there and like pretty much just click around and look through stuff.
I can only imagine what he finds sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of the times he has to report things that are not
Right.
necessarily kosher or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. So what was I saying? He I saw him do like I completely lost my train of thought.
You said that the music from
Oh yeah. Sorry, the music reminding me of this this one thing that he did. It was it's supposed to be like a deep web game.
Okay.
And it was like Satan's something.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I've heard of this one. Satan's something.
Yeah,
And you're like, is it like a walking corridor kind of thing? And there's like creepy screams and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And someone said that the
supposedly-
original one had like dead
And
bodies
like
or child
dead
porn on it or
people.
something.
Yeah. And
Right.
supposedly, it's really hard to get a hold of like any original,
As it probably should be.
as it probably should be for sure. But that just made the whole like, I guess legend of it
Right.
that much crazier because
Because it's hard to get a hold of.
Well, I don't want to see those things, but at the same time, it makes me wonder, like, what else was in that game? Like,
Right. And
was it ever like a complete actual game? Because like the footage that you see is like this.
yeah, you're kind of like wandering around in like a corridor.
It seems like it's just like completely stripped. Like maybe there was an actual game there, but they like chopped it up and like.
And that's
abandoned it or
assuming
something.
that the stuff that they claim was in the original was in there, and that the one that
Actually
we
was,
found
yeah.
isn't the original. But no, I agree. I've always been fascinated, and you're right. This is the same kind of concept to me. Number stations, when I researched it now, I hadn't actually looked into number stations since the latest 2010 or 2011, somewhere in there. When I first found it, like I always thought it was kind of creepy, it's just kind of like this weird mystery. And now there's more people talking about it, and there's more people saying, "Oh, it's just for spies." It's less mysterious than it once was. The YouTube comments back then on the videos were just like, "This is weird," So
It's weird though, because it's like you'd think that spies would just be able to like talk to each other some other way now.
And they probably do.
Like-
I mean, you think about, potentially encrypted emails or
Couldn't you
encrypted
just like
texts.
talk over like a burner?
Or even think about this. You have a number station giving you numbers that you then decode, and everyone's allowed to hear those numbers, correct? So it would be just as easy to call them on their cell phone and give them the numbers. You know what I mean? Obviously,
Right.
that leaves you open to the small risk of them finding that you're talking to this guy. But they could have, just some random CIA intern be the one calling or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, not that
Yeah,
CIA
that's,
probably has interns, but
Well, hey, I mean, I don't know. They might actually have interns. You never know. They might have just people that are working like, desk jobs that are not handling any classified information. They're just doing paperwork and like,
That's true. That's true. There are like
finances
tiers
and
of
crap like
classified
that.
information probably where
I mean, there's people that handle all the busy paperwork, like the,
taxes and stuff.
accounts, taxes,
Right.
like all that crap. And then there's the people that get to handle the fun stuff that, they get to, see the files for like the JFK stuff, or they
Right.
get to. I mean, now
everyone
supposedly
can.
most of that is supposedly.
What do you mean supposedly? You think they're fake?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that some of like the real gritty stuff has been redacted.
Have you looked
like,
into
where
it at all?
nobody can. Well, I think they were trying because they were pressing Trump to get some stuff redacted, like that they didn't want anybody to see. But I'm pretty sure that some of that stuff has already been, like, if there's let's say like a top secret file that we can get to see the inside of, I'm sure that there's a top secret file for that top secret file that we won't.
Right. No, I agree.
See, if
There's
that makes any
potentially
sense.
stuff taken out. But even
Like,
the stuff that
just
came
the
out was pretty...
really crazy juicy stuff, though.
There was some crazy stuff in
Like-
there already, so...
But if there's anything that suggests like actual conspiracy stuff, I'm sure that all of that's been taken out.
Have you looked into it at all?
I haven't really done much research.
some
into
interesting
it. I
stuff
went
in
and I
there.
looked at on the Narrow website and like just kind of browsed around and looked at a couple things, but I didn't really do much research into it.
Right. We should look into that a little more. I've looked at a couple things, but no, I do. I mean, that kind of thing, like this, like you're talking about top secret CIA stuff and like number stations and the steep web stuff. It's always been something that I find fascinating. What was the name of that channel you were talking about, Andrew? Deep web guy a minute ago.
Oh, Some
gonna look it
Ordinary Gamers.
Some Ordinary Gamers.
Yes, check out his videos. They're really great.
Yeah, because that stuff has always been super interesting to me. Finding and some of that's creepy and weird, and then also I get a similar feeling from things like when I went and played the old Worlds game, which is like an abandoned chat room from the early 2000s, and like
Yeah, there's something about like playing a game that's like kind of dead and the community is not really there anymore, and you just kind of feel like you get this hollow vibe, like everything's kind of just been left behind.
Yeah, the left behind hollow vibe is a huge one. The other thing is that it's always weirded me out is I played the game. I actually went. There's a very brief period of like a month or two where I went to 4chan's paranormal board, like once a week, and this was mid high school, so like 9 years ago or something. And they posted about Worlds, and it was still dead, but the people from 4chan were on there playing, so it felt still kind of like a World, just very small and dying community, even though it was all new players. But there was a guy there, and I think his name was Van Helsing or something. You guys can check. But he was standing on the left side of the starter area. And I thought it was an NPC at the time. And there's another guy, Sir Gemini or something, standing near him. And then there's one other guy. And when I came back, like last year, that Van Helsing guy is standing in the exact same spot.
What?
I don't think he's moved in those 7 years. And so the weirdest part, and I found out it's a human now because they have like a ZZZ, which basically means AFK, next to them.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, either he died, he quit the game, whatever, he doesn't play anymore, but he's still logged in. So it's like, okay, he's still logged in. But then you're like, how is his computer still running the game? Right? And so I'm just
Maybe
curious.
he's logged in on purpose.
What's that? Yeah, maybe
Maybe
he's logged in on purpose, but it's
purpose.
just weird to me because I'm almost positive that he didn't move, or it's possible that he always comes back to that spot and leaves. But the thing is,
he just like comes back and shakes his mouse and like walks away.
Yeah. So and I've watched old videos from like way back about Worlds and the videos now, and it seems like even in the old videos and the new videos, he's standing in the same spot. So I'm curious if they have him like running his account on like a server somewhere where he's just logged in. Or like, you can't have a computer that's just been running, even if it's asleep, for 8, 9,
I don't
10
know.
years.
Computers are...
No, they can, but don't you think at some point it would shut off? And then what does he come back, turn it on, log back in, and then stop playing? It's just weird. It's really weird.
What if he's going for like a world record or something?
He could be. And the other guy, Sir Gemini, he actually still plays. I know this because I saw him a couple times when I logged in, standing next to Van Helsing. And then one time I logged in and he wasn't there anymore. And then I was just like, what? And then I realized that he at least does go AFK, but he comes back. Like, he's not always sitting in the same spot as the other guy.
That's so weird that anybody would play that game.
It is weird. And some of the even weirder stuff, I actually didn't put this in my video of the worlds thing, because it felt maybe weird to put in a video form. There was a world called Mugshots World, I believe. And it was just pictures of people who'd played the game, like in real life pictures of them.
That's weird.
And going through, I saw Sir Gemini's like this old man, this happy old man. And there's and this is even weirder because, you have that abandoned feel. You're looking at all these pictures of people from 10 years ago who don't play the game anymore in this abandoned world, and their picture's still up on the wall.
Some of them are like probably dead.
It's very possible
some of them are probably
dead.
And some of them are like probably rich now.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just
some of them got rich off of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's like 8,000 now.
Is it 8,000 now?
No, it was at like 740 or something like that. 7,400. Like earlier today, I think, like this morning. Yeah, it's 73.73 right now.
I would get it, but I feel like it's going to fall again, but it's probably just going to skyrocket up again. It never goes back down. It did briefly once.
That's the crazy thing, man. If I had bought Bitcoin when I had found out about Bitcoin, I would be a millionaire right now.
It's crazy to think
about. But I
didn't.
I didn't really have that much money back then. I could have bought Bitcoin when it was worth like nothing, where you could buy like, hundreds of Bitcoin for like a couple bucks or whatever it was.
You know what's a really crazy thing to think about? When Bitcoin was, you could buy hundreds of them and they were worth virtually nothing. When the Bitcoin craze happened and people were mining it and people were talking about it. It's crazy new technology, but it was still super cheap. And also, I'm sure you've heard of the website Silk Road Online.
Oh, yeah.
They were an old drug selling website, which I've been to the deep web once or twice, just to see what
I've been all over the deep web.
What's that?
I've been all over the deep web.
You have?
I went on my own explorations.
There's not a lot of good stuff to find. It's really hard to find like interesting things. A lot of the stuff set up seems like it's this creepy, crazy thing, but it's just set up and it's fake. But the Silk Road was big and it looked legitimate when I saw it, and I guess it was.
It was legitimate,
right? No, I know. I know it is now, I guess. But I was like, how are people buying and selling drugs online? But apparently, you would just buy Bitcoin, right? I think it was only Bitcoin. Maybe there was some other things, but you'd buy Bitcoin and you'd pay someone for the drugs, and then they would just ship it to you in the mail, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, you would send them, you send them the Bitcoin, like they,
and it would go into it would go into like a waiting place, right, until you claimed you got it, or after a couple of days.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I thought I remembered something about that. Maybe that was towards the end. Maybe I was mistaken, but I just remember thinking, how do I know that I'm going to pay this guy in Bitcoin or whatever and get my stuff? And then, do I take the hit if it gets, taken in customs or something, or wherever they're sending it from?
Yeah, I remember there was some legit ones.
There were legit people. I know that because I talked to someone who in college, I had some weird drugs, and I was like, where did you get this? And they're like, oh, Silk Road. And I was like, It just like blew my mind for a second. I was like, wait, that's legit, huh? But
Yeah, see, I found out about Bitcoin like way back because my friend at the time when I was in college, he was telling me about it, and he was like, yeah, it's worth like I think at that point it had either just gone through a crash, but it was really cheap, and he was like, yeah, I just bought some Bitcoin.
Right.
I don't know if he made any money off of it now. I'm sure if he still had that Bitcoin, he's probably pretty decently well off now.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say about the Bitcoin, is that there's tons of people out there when they were using Silk Road, and when it was new, that they just either mined a ton of it and had it, or were using it to buy stuff off Silk Road and then stop. Tons of people out there have wallets with like dozens, if not hundreds, of Bitcoins that they've just either forgotten about. They probably remember it now that it's so big, but or forgotten the password. I've never had Bitcoin, so I don't know exactly how you access it, but I've heard people say, I don't remember how to access my Bitcoin, but I know I have like 20 Bitcoins in there,
Yeah.
And it's just like...
Well, some wallets have like weird ways of getting in. Like if you have to have like a special key to reset any sort of password or anything like that. So if you forget your password, you're pretty much fucked.
Right. And so
like if you forget your password and you don't have that like word key thing, then you're
done.
screwed.
Your Bitcoins are gone. And that's the thing. Like, think about how many hundreds or thousands of Bitcoins are out there that are just sitting in unclaimed wallets that people forgot the password to. Or the key.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about stuff like that. I've heard stories of people that, bought like a bunch of Bitcoin and forgot about it, and then years later, saw that Bitcoin was, jumping to 5,000, and they're like, oh my gosh, I totally have Bitcoin. And then they like go and check, and they have all their Bitcoin, and they're like, oh my God,
I'm rich. It's crazy that something like that can make someone so rich.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were smart...
And it can make you so poor, too, at the same time. Because, all these people that are buying in right now, like,
it could go down again, yeah.
Well, what happens if it just fucking crashes completely, And then if it crashes completely, I'm buying as much as possible.
The other big thing, obviously, is that if Bitcoin gets overtaken by another Bitcoin, people are mining Ethereum now or whatever, if that one becomes the main popular one, and if at any point everybody just starts taking Ethereum and stops taking Bitcoin, then that like worth of Bitcoin will go down. So,
yeah, it's possible, but I don't think that's very probable.
It's not that it's not probable or that it's likely to happen. It's that it could happen. So I don't want viewers to just go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go buy 100 Bitcoins after this,
Well, yeah, the thing that you got to be careful about, too, is that Ethereum is ran more like a company as opposed to Bitcoin is, like, super, super decentralized. Like, nobody really owns Bitcoin, They know who the creator of Ethereum is. They know, about Ethereum. Like, they know, they have a better idea of, like, it's not as much of a mystery as Bitcoin is. Because Bitcoin, they still don't even know who the real creator is, Satoshi or whatever his name is. Like they still don't know.
They don't know if that's even him or whatever, right? Like no.
And I mean, he's like a billionaire.
Oh yeah.
Like he's got a lot of fucking Bitcoin. Pardon my language.
No, I think it's an interesting topic, Bitcoin in general, but. Yeah, I don't speculate too much on... You just never know about anything. But that's the thing, is what I was going to say, is that back then, when Bitcoin came out, when you knew the... how it was made and how it was going to be mined and how it was going to become rarer and harder to mine over time, the only thing you didn't know is if it would catch on. But if people were smart thinking back then, they could have seen that Bitcoin had potential to become something big.
Yeah.
Now it's harder to speculate, what's Bitcoin's worth going to be in a year,
Oh, and I mean, that's the craziest thing about all of it is that, you could have all of this money right now and then, in a couple of weeks you could have nothing.
Right.
Like that's how the stock market is too. Like any money that you put into any of this stuff is all risk, you know.
Well, you have companies where they're worth a ton of money, they're big and everything, and then all of a sudden they have like a scandal or something happens and the company just gets, destroyed. And
that's
falls
why they
apart.
say like whenever there's a big dip, or like whenever there's like a big incline, and like maybe you hit like an all-time high or whatever.
Right.
Like Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin hits 7,500. They say, release some of your Bitcoin, sell some of your Bitcoin off.
Right.
Like make some money from it, but don't sell all of them.
Right, exactly.
Because if it jumps again and you've already sold all of your Bitcoin, then it's like...
Yeah, you just skim a little off the top, make some money, and then if it dips again, you buy it back, and now you just have profit in the same amount of Bitcoin. And if it just keeps going
drops,
up, you're out couple Bitcoins or 0.1 Bitcoin, whatever your scale of buying is. But
exactly.
Sorry, everybody. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties there, so we've got that all sorted out now.
I've been finding a bunch of gross bugs around lately, and I've been hearing and seeing about gross bugs.
Like at your house?
Just like all over.
What's a gross bug? You mean like a roach?
Dude, so, okay. I go into my bathroom, right? I wake up, it's like, I think this is on like Monday or Tuesday. I go into my bathroom, I do my normal routine, which is like I grab my towel, I go into my bathroom, I put my towel on the towel rack, and then I like slide the shower curtain open a bit, and I turn the shower on so that it's warm whenever I get into it.
Okay.
Because before I shower, I usually like, brush my teeth or whatever, get ready. Maybe shave a bit if I look like I'm a bit scruffy. But, so I turn it on and I go and I'm like taking a shit or whatever. And then I go to get in the shower and there's this huge cockroach in the shower.
In your shower?
Huge cockroach in the shower. And he's on his back. I guess what happened was I turned the thing on, he got spooked and started running, and then I turned the shower on, and the shower head hit him, like full blast, and like flipped him over, because he was stuck in this stream, just like in like a loop, like he wasn't able to get out on his back and everything. So, I mean, like I Reinhardt hammered down him like pretty easily, so.
With what?
I mean, it wasn't, I
have a
I
little
hammered
hammer?
down. No, like I just took like this, like wet white box or something and smashed him with it.
Okay.
But I mean, it was fairly easy. There was no like chasing him or anything like that going on.
Right.
But it was like one of those situations where like after it happened, like I was like, I don't even want to take a shower anymore.
Did you let him go down the drain?
Like I almost just like went to my parents' house and like took a shower there and just like called my work and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be late."
No,
but, I sucked it up.
I've had issues where I've gotten in the shower, and this was in my old house. It was an old house, so bugs would sometimes get in. And I remember I was showering for like 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then this just spider starts coming down from the ceiling. It's like this huge spider. And it scared the shit out of me, and I jumped out of the way, and then it hit the water stream, of course, and it just floated down the drain. But the whole rest of the shower, I was like terrified, like a spider just came down.
That reminds me of a story that happened to me as well. I always have like weird bugs and bathtub stories. Not a good place.
There's always bugs in the bathroom. I guess because it's wet or something.
Well, this one time at my parents' house, I think I was actually I came home to visit because I was going to Texas State, and I came home for like Thanksgiving or something, and I was staying in my old room, and I went to go take a shower, and when I turned the shower on, I turned the head down so like the shower would just go like straight down, okay, so that I could stand there and like, kind of get some of the heat because I guess it was cold at that time.
Right.
But so like it dumped a bunch of water straight down the drain immediately. and I was standing there in the bathtub, and this huge spider comes flying out of the drain, and like flies like, you know, comes scurrying towards me, and I'm like screaming. I'm like, ah, 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 and I like jump up, because I mean it was like a big, like brown spider. I mean, it wasn't like like the size of a tarantula or anything, but I mean it was
tarantula comes out of your drain.
It was a pretty decently like large spider, and I mean it freaked me the hell out. I got out of there. I'm pretty sure I went and took a shower in my parents' bathroom after that.
I wouldn't scoff at that.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
I don't know why.
And when I was at Big Ben, I was washing some like some mess kit stuff.
Okay.
And my brother was standing behind me, and he was like, "Don't freak out, but there's a black widow right behind you." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" So, you know, I'm trying not to freak out, but I'm like looking around, and he's like, "Oh, and there's like this other huge spider right next to you, like right in front of you." And like all these ants and all these other bugs. And I'm like just sitting there like trying to like scrape the rest of the macaroni off of this little plate. And I'm like, get off of there. I have to leave. It was like the worst experience.
Did you see the Black Widow?
Yeah, I saw the Black Widow. I mean, it was like a smaller one, but that scared me even more because I was like, you know,
tiny
aren't the
Black
small
Widow
ones supposed to have like, you know, they're not able to control how much venom they put out.
I don't know if Black Widows do that, but it's possible. That just the idea of a tiny Black Widow scares me because it's less likely to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it was a really small one too.
Can you imagine how much more terrifying spiders would be? You know how fast they are? Imagine if they were tiny. I'm sure the baby spiders, but imagine if full-grown spiders, some of them were like this big, but they were still as deadly as like a Black Widow. That would be far more terrifying.
Horrifying. I would probably. Yeah, I would live in a place that doesn't have that.
Yeah, I lived in Texas for 9 years. I've never seen a Black Widow.
The only thing I've seen in Texas, and I don't mind them, I really don't, tarantulas.
Tarantulas
Honestly,
are pretty
tarantulas,
cool, aren't they?
Out of all of the spiders, they are the least scary to me.
Yeah, and I heard that for the most part they don't bite, and I think but they can like shoot their hairs off at you and it makes you itchy or something. I don't know if that's like a real thing.
They're odd. I had a tarantula try and come into my garage, and it kept trying to walk in, and I kept sweeping it away. And then it would like walk back and like look angrier, and I'd be like, "Dude, just go away. What are you doing?"
Maybe
like,
he had kids.
This is my garage. I'm sweeping. No, he didn't have anything in there. I'd never seen that.
That was his garage now, Andrew. He's been paying rent all those months.
And I've seen like, I saw like one like the size of a fist at my parents' house, like on the side of their house. But I mean, those scare me far, far less because they're kind of slow and they don't really, I mean, you don't really see them do much besides kind of just walking in the roadways.
You know what's terrifying? The tarantula hawk wasp, right? Isn't that the one that like it injects its babies into the tarantula and then they eat their way out and hatch?
Well, that's
and it's also like one of the most painful stings in the world. Nature
is disgusting.
It is quite disgusting. Just think about this for a second. Like, you always hear, oh, you know, I got a tapeworm or I got brain-eating amoeba or whatever. You know, you hear about it. But just think about it. Think about having a tapeworm, literal long, flat worm living in your intestine. Just hanging out in there.
Absolutely disgusting.
It's gross.
What about those ones, what are they, ringworms?
I don't know much about ringworms.
If you like step in dog poop, if you step in like something that has ringworms, they can like absorb into your skin.
What? That's how easy you can get it?
Yeah, you like see them through your skin too.
Yeah, you get little rings or whatever.
Yeah. That to me is
yeah, that's pretty
almost grosser because you can see it, but even then, like, I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures of like stomachs with like a bunch of worms in them, like, or whatever that they've like cut out of people, or like intestines, like people with like intestinal worms.
Oh, yeah. I didn't need to think about that. Or like they're full, like just full of like some kind of worm.
Yeah, that to me is probably the ultimate.
Have you seen the videos of? There's two. there's the videos of the like dogs or whatever have like mango worm larva or something implanted in them, and it's literally like this. You just see this hole, and you're like, "What is that?" And you squeeze the hole, and this like maggot pops out that's like this big.
That's disgusting.
And then also, I don't know if you've seen those videos. They're called like jiggers or something, or like it's something close to that. Sorry, but
Oh no, you're getting into Pootie Pie territory. I'm just kidding.
I swear that's what they're called, but I can't remember if that's the official name. But there's a video people posted on Reddit a while back, but they literally like live in your feet. And the videos, like, they're absolutely disgusting, but also I couldn't stop watching them because it was so satisfying to watch. You'd have like your feet and you'd
deal
walk.
with things with my feet.
You'd walk.
I can't deal with things with
and
my
you'd
feet.
get these calluses on your feet, right?
No.
And the worms
no,
would be
no,
in there,
no.
and basically these people would just like take a knife and they just keep shaving away at the bottoms of your feet until like the maggots would like pop out.
That is disgusting.
It's pretty gross, but it's also kind of
I
interesting.
can't do
to
feet
watch.
stuff. My feet, like, I mean, you know me. You can even see in the background, like my feet are my favorite part of my body, I guess you could say. Like, if you look behind me, there's a bunch of shoes, because I like to put them on my feet. If there's things that are on my feet that I can't put shoes on, that's the worst thing that could happen.
You can't put shoes on because something's on your feet?
That's the crisis, yeah, not being able to wear
I can
my
dig that.
onitsukas.
By the way, I believe, so the YouTube videos call them jiggers. Just wanted to make sure that I was not incorrect there. But it seems like Google is telling me that these are...
I honestly don't want to
Fleas?
see the video.
Yeah. I don't know if I need to send you... Oh, that's what they look like normally?
Yeah, I don't want to see it.
It looks like a onion with the face of a bug. What? Okay, yeah, you're not going to want to see this, Andrew.
I'm not gonna.
Okay, I've made a huge mistake. So these people's like skin dies, so their feet are all black as well. And they just like shave off the dead skin to find the bugs underneath.
Well, I think that's an excellent place to leave off. So I'd like to go ahead and just say, everybody, start shaving the skin off of your feet.
No, don't do that. It probably makes them easier to infect you. Just don't walk around barefoot.
We'll collect the skin, and I'll put the skin on my feet so that I'm extra protected.
What if someone already has like jiggers or whatever and they infect your feet when you put the skin on it?
Well, then, I'll just stay away and I'll move to like Iceland or something.
Then you're going to get the ice flea. I don't know if that's a real thing, but everyone be wary of the ice flea.
Whatever place has the least amount of bugs.
Just
and
keep going north.
parasites.
There's less bugs.
All right.
Well, I don't know if there's less bugs. There's less creepy bugs. I want to get somewhere where there's not wasps. I am absolutely terrified of wasps. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't like wasps either. I actually just killed a bunch of hornets.
I love
today
not being in Texas anymore because there's still wasps.
Savagely murdered a bunch of yellow jackets.
Good.
Seriously.
Let's make them extinct.
There's still another nest I need to get. Unfortunately, I only got one of them.
It's funny because I'm not afraid of bees at all.
Bees are fine. Bee stings are nothing, man. Wasp stings hurt way worse.
You've been stung?
Oh, yeah. Tons of times.
Wasps hurt more. I've never been stung. I think that's why I'm even more afraid. And I talked to my dad because he's lived in Texas, and I was like, have you ever been... Because he said he doesn't like wasps either, and I was like, have you ever been stung? Like, is it that bad? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's bad. And I was like, that doesn't make me feel any better.
I did not.
I thought I'd get stung and I'd be like, this is doable, and not be so afraid anymore.
Hurts.
But
yeah. Bee stings are nothing.
Is it like a long-term pain too, or is it more like the needle going in you kind of feeling? Both?
It's hard to say because it's been so long since I've been stung, but I do remember, and I've been stung by like, red wasps and hornets and yellow jackets and whatever. And I think the one that hurt the most was the yellow jacket, I think. Because they have like straight up like a poison or something. But red wasps, I mean, I've been stung by red wasps thousands of times.
Is a red wasp just like what you'd call like a standard wasp that's not a yellow jacket?
I think so. Yeah, just a standard wasp.
I hate them.
I
just hate how
them too.
wasps look. How they fly around all angry all the time.
We used to have, like, well, at my parents' house when I was still living with them, they used to have a wasp problem. They were, like, getting in the attic. And, like, the wasps would, like, fly out of the attic every night, like, and fly, like, into the, like, night sky. And, like, they had, like, a huge nest. I think they still have a huge nest. But, so we had, like, wasps everywhere around the house. And my brother would go around with, like, this thing and just slap them down at the ground, and they would die on impact from hitting the ground because he'd hit them so hard. And he even got stung on the face once from like trying to hit one out of this bush, and it stung him in the face.
I had a friend who threw a roll of duct tape at a wasp nest, and he got stung behind the earlobe. Stupid. And I was like, I don't want any part of that, man.
Yeah. If I see a wasp nest, it's like me standing there with the
raid
spraying it. Yeah.
I
bought like the $1.99, like the cheapest.
I heard this story, Andrew, kind of like the other one, where these wasps were living in these guys' house, like in the walls, like there was like holes on the outside in the walls or something.
Don't tell me that.
And so they had wasps living in the walls or the ceilings or wherever, and certain like light fixtures were old, and the wasps would come into the house through the top of the light fixture where the light was hanging from the ceiling or whatever. And so they just have wasps flying around in the house, and they just kept coming and coming.
That's horrifying. That's a nightmare, dude.
It really is a nightmare.
That's a nightmare.
Maybe that was a nightmare, but no, I think I heard someone say that. So, anyways, guys, this might be slightly shorter because I didn't feel like I had any other topics that would segue well with number stations. I didn't feel like they comboed well. And because it's such a mysterious topic, there's also not a lot of depth to go into it. It's kind of like the idea of number stations is kind of fascinating to me. So hopefully it's still a
hopefully
good
you learned something.
And hopefully you learned something.
I learned something.
And the thing about number stations too is just hearing about them doesn't really do them justice. You got to listen to some, and we'll play some, but there's tons of them, Andrew. Just absolutely tons of them out there that you can listen to with weird songs.
Yeah, so go listen to some weird. Go down a rabbit hole. That's my
number station rabbit hole. There'll be other good topics if you.
That's your deep lore homework, or whatever
the
this
deep lore
channel is going to be
homework.
called.
Do we need to give them a comment? You've seen those videos where they always are like, leave a comment down below about whatever.
Leave a comment. That's your homework.
What's your favorite color, everyone? Please let us know in the comments down below.
Well, and we'll only know that you've listened to the whole episode because this is the only time we've mentioned it.
Oh, yeah, so that's the other thing, too, in like the middle of the episode.
If you don't do your homework, we're going to know that you didn't listen to the episode.
You'll get an F. So. No, guys, thank you for watching. If you did like the podcast,
thanks for watching.
And
leave a like.
If you like what you're seeing, you can subscribe, and we will be back here next Thursday.
If you like what you're seeing.
What's that?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, yes. Okay. Thank you, Andrew, for the shirt.